With billions of us housebound and hungry for distraction from lockdown, the pandemic became the inflection point for the erasing of lines between retail and recreation. We wanted and needed both. And yet, as my next guest points out, the technologies we use today to shop digitally are woefully lacking in entertainment value or engagement, a problem she and her company are solving. Neha Singh is the founder and CEO of Obsess, a company that is redefining how we shop online. I caught up with Neha recently to get her thoughts on the evolution of the digital shopping experience. Neha, thank you so much for joining me. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Doug. Excited to be here.
You know, sometimes someone can say one thing and you hear that one thing and it kind of changes the way you look at everything. And the last time you and I spoke, you said something that really stood out to me. And it's just one of those things that you just never really consider until someone mentions it. But you said, you know, the Amazon sort of web convention, that sort of grid setup that Amazon uses and so many other retailers use, you said, you know, it's over 25 years old now. Mm-hmm. And it never really dawned on me. It's like a quarter of a century that we've been dealing with this sort of standard web convention. And that leads us, of course, to you and what you're doing and how your work is defying that. So for those in our audience who might not be familiar with Obsess, can you just first of all tell us what it is exactly that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So Obsess is an experiential e-commerce platform. We enable brands and retailers to create 3D virtual stores on their website. So going from this flat grid interface, completely changing it to something that is fully immersive and visual and lets brands create a discovery-driven experience.
So, Neha, you obviously made a decision to go in the direction of CGI and this more sort of immersive environment. What was it exactly that sort of catalyzed that thinking, as opposed to maybe just tweaking, you know, the old format? What was it that spurred this completely new vision?
Yeah, so I think our vision is that brands should be able to express themselves online in the same rich way that they might envision their fashion show or any type of experience. But at the same time, online, if you're creating an experience digitally, you don't have to be limited by what's possible in the physical world. And so with CGI today getting to a point that it can look very photorealistic, look very high quality, it really has enabled our customers to create just all kinds of different experiences. And it's been just amazing to see what brands are making with it. Like we have customers, you know, making all the way from like a virtual rooftop pool for a summer collection to like a Russian ski chalet for a winter collection. Like they have recreated the Apollo Theater in Harlem. And some brands like tend to go for a traditional retail look. And then some brands will really create a brand new experience for every season. And I think like some of the most like interesting ones that brands have created, like one is we created the house from the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation movie for Sam's Club. And so, you know, the over the top lighting on Griswold House, and you could actually switch and see different types of lighting. You could go to every room. We just saw super high like user engagement, like people really interacting with every element of the house. We have had like Tommy Hilfiger had created this whole like Tommy Planet, and it had all these different parts. One of it was like inspired by the surrealist Dutch artist Escher and had all these like stairs going into nowhere. Another part had this futuristic version of London. So so it really gives CGI really gives brands the creative freedom to create really unique experiences, which is our vision for the future of e-commerce, that every brand should be able to express themselves like uniquely to engage customers.
That I was looking at one of your sites this morning, and I believe it was the Ralph Lauren site. And because, you know, I think the key element is the lack of discovery, right? When you're shopping on Amazon, it's never a discovery experience. You're not really sort of peeking into little places and finding unique things and happening upon things that are surprising. And yet, just in the first few minutes that I was sort of navigating that Ralph Lauren site, that all of a sudden there's media, there's a performer in the store, and I find myself watching a video, and that's making me think, okay, what else is in the store? But I guess my question is, if you're dealing with a retailer and you are using an old grid pattern type website, sort of just a card index website, it's a pretty easy process to work through that. Where do you start when it could be a store that's underwater or something on a rooftop? Like, where do you even start that creative process?
Yeah, I would say like for our customers, the where we like to begin is thinking about like what do you want your virtual flagship store to look like, right? So this is the question. Like you know, brands know how to design flagship stores or stores in real life, and now you're designing your virtual flagship store. It can have many of the elements or all the elements from your real flagship store, but then it can have many other elements that may not be possible physically. So ultimately, I think we tend to go through like a few phases, but the creative direction itself comes from the brand, and then we like to make them think about how are you going to optimize this for digital. Like if it's a concept of like a store, people are looking at this on their phone, right? Like 80% of people are looking at it on mobile. So using the data, we can really drive from that creative vision into creating essentially a layout and merchandising, which is what you would do in a real life store, but layout merchandising that is optimized for mobile. And then the last layer is the creative content. So like the video that you experienced, what we see in the data is like the more content, the more interactions you can have in the virtual store, the longer people stay, the more they shop. So then thinking about what is that content that you're going to layer into this experience that you've created. So it's typically kind of those three stages.
I want to talk about one thing before we let you go. You also mentioned something to me the last time we chatted, and you said, I think the way you put it was, and this might sound crazy, but I think that people might start buying virtual clothing and virtual goods.
Yes.
And I think it was like maybe a month later, Gucci announced that it was selling a virtual pair of running shoes. And now it's like the whole market is piling on. So number one, nice call. And number two, do you really see a viable market for virtual products?
Yes, absolutely. I think we are already getting interest from a lot of, I mean, they have launched their virtual goods and now we are getting interest for virtual goods and virtual stores. So I think this is going to be a huge trend. And I think COVID has accelerated it because our presence has become so much about online and what we are on Zoom and what we are, on social media. And so we don't necessarily have to own all of those things in real life. Like we can own them virtually and we can have a virtual presence with a Gucci, jacket. And I think it's absolutely going to grow.
Amazing. Amazing stuff. Well, listen, Neha, continued success with Obsess. Thank you so much for being with us again. I always enjoy our chats. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and same here. All the best with the book.
Thank you.